Today we're counting down the top 15 most mysterious old buildings ever discovered. From ancient megaliths to strange fortresses, these ancient structures have unknown purposes and have baffled researchers for centuries. Let's begin today's video with number 15, Scarab BR. As far as Neolithic standards go, the buildings at Scarab BR are in incredible condition. Consisting of 10 clustered houses built using stones and soil, the small homes within this tiny community are complete with stone-built pieces of furniture including cupboards, dressers, seats, and storage boxes. However, around the year 2500 BC, the entire site was abandoned under mysterious circumstances. And while the reasons for the abandonment are still anyone's guess, causes such as the impact of climate change and catastrophic natural events have all been theorized. Number 14. The Church of San Juan Parangancutiro. On February 20th of 1943, a volcano began to rise from a Mexican cornfield. Before long, it had grown massive, and after erupting, completely destroyed the nearby village of San Juan Parangancutiro. However, despite the lava destroying everything, somehow the local church tower and altar remained untouched. Even after the volcano continued to erupt for the next 8 years, the small church stood tall. And while some believe that it was the will of God that kept it up, the reality is no one knows for sure. Number 13. The Ryugyong Hotel. North Korea is easily one of the world's most secretive places, and the Ryugyong Hotel may just be its most easy-to-spot mystery. Towering in the capital city of Pyongyang, the construction began in 1987, yet halted a few years after once North Korea began to face economic troubles. While the exterior was never finished, in 2011 an LED screen was fitted to display propaganda messages in 2018. It never really hosted a single visitor, and whether or not the regime plans to actually finish the hotel remains a complete mystery. Number 12. Golden Finance 117. When the construction of the Golden Finance 117 building began in 2008, it was set to be the pride and joy of the Chinese city of Tianjin and the 5th tallest building in the world. However, in 2018, the Chinese government put a ban on all skyscrapers over 500 meters. This in turn halted construction on the already delayed building, and it was promptly put on the market. However, it has no buyers, and ever since, little information has been published on exactly what'll happen to this massive ghost skyscraper. Number 11. Pumapunku. While it may not look like much today, Pumapunku was one of the world's most impressive buildings during its heyday. Translating to Gate of the Puma in English, it hails from the 6th century and consisted of a series of elegantly designed plazas, ramps, and pools. What makes it mysterious, though, is its stonework. First and foremost, the stones used to construct the complex were sourced from 80 kilometers away and weighed as much as 120 tons, making transport nearly inconceivable. Furthermore, the whole complex uses an exceptionally advanced form of precision cutting, where all the stones fit together like jigsaw puzzle pieces. Incredibly enough, this could be the first evidence of mass production technology in the Americas. Number 10. Chathuok. For thousands of years, humans have lived together in cities, and Chathuok is the oldest example of such a settlement. Now, it should be made clear that, technically speaking, Chathuok is not really quite a city, but a proto-city. That is to say, a settlement that's different from a regular city due to its lack of planning and centralized rule. Yet, despite this relative anarchy, the city seems to have been well-run and home to around 10,000 residents. These residents lived among its interconnected system of primitive homes, which consisted of simple mud brick rooms that had to be added continuously as the community grew. What makes this conglomeration of buildings strange is that it appears to be no commercial or public buildings. Rather, it seems like each and every building was a home. Why this is the case is a complete mystery, and to make things even weirder, the settlement has a strange lack of the types of trash or debris that would be expected to be found in a city. The reasons for this are also a mystery. However, some historians believe that this was simply because each building being a home made the entire place cleaner. Thankfully, all of these mysteries don't mean that archaeologists studying the site have been left empty-handed. After all, countless figurines of animals and goddesses were discovered in the complex. The inhabitants also seem to have had a tradition of burying their dead within their homes, as each dwelling has a large number of human bones buried underneath it. This in turn has made this strange ancient city rich in historical and cultural significance. Number 9. The Moai of Easter Island. So as far as mega projects go, few are as remote as the one that took place on Easter Island, located about 3,500 kilometers off the coast of Chile and about 2,000 kilometers away from the nearest inhabited island, the Rapa Nui people on Easter Island, yet they still managed to live there for centuries. Throughout their time there, they're believed to have constructed almost 1,000 massive Moai statues, with the majority believed to have been created between the years 1250 and 1500. In order to make them, the process began by picking out a large stone bed to be used, with the average stone being about 18 tons, and the height of this stone being upwards of 6 meters. These stones would then be transported to the area in which they used to be buried via a system of boards and ropes. With this process being so intense and tedious, it likely took ropes that were about 200 meters long just to get the task done. However, once in the correct spot, the Moai would then be carved into the likeness of a human, and then lowered into the ground so the majority of the stone was submerged, while only the head would be above the surface. Once this was complete, the Moa would have stones placed into its eyes in order to activate its supposed powers. However, there's still a ton of mystery surrounding these strange structures. First and foremost, the way they were built isn't entirely clear. While many scholars believe that ropes and human hands were behind their movement, others believe that the Moai were rolled to their location on tops of logs. Also, their purpose hasn't been fully determined. While they likely had some relation to a family's ancestors, they may have also stood as symbols of authority and power, making them a multi-purpose structure. Yet despite the fact that all the intricacies of their history haven't been ironed out, a visit to Easter Island is still well worth it. Number 8. The Coral Castle. Castles can be made for many reasons, but no one's quite sure why a Latvian man named Ed Līdzkalniņš created the Coral Castle. Born in 1887, Ed used his skills to create a castle out of fossilized coral that stands at over 7.5 meters tall. He used coral stones that were heavier than any of those used for the Great Pyramid of Giza, and has many eccentricities inside, such as a sundial, stone rocking chair, and a heart-shaped stone table. However, when asked what his motivations were, he vaguely and rather mysteriously said that it was a tribute to his Sweet 16. But who is this Sweet 16, you may ask? Well, a look into Ed's life may give us the answer. You see, before coming to the United States from Latvia, Ed, who was 26 years old, was allegedly suddenly rejected by his 16-year-old fiancée, Agnes Skufs, just one day before their wedding. He promptly left for the United States, where he spent the next 28 years building the Coral Castle. While doing so, he was very secretive. You see, the 5-foot-tall Ed would work on the castle at night and keep true to a policy of letting no one see his working methods. The only advanced tool that he spoke of was using a perpetual motion holder, and given the massive size of the bricks and strange material, many began to speculate that he was using black magic to build his castle. He also made the strange decision to move the entire castle partway through building it. While it was originally located in an extremely remote part of the Everglades, he ended up spending 3 years transferring it to the outskirts of Miami after hearing about talks of development in his area. Unfortunately, Ed's incredible castle was never fully completed. That's because in 1951, he passed away due to kidney failure at the age of 64. The castle was then transferred to the hands of his nephew. From there, it moved hands a few more times until finally being sold to a company by the name of Coral Castle Incorporated in 1981 for the 2024 equivalent of about $600,000. It's now become a popular tourist attraction and a great place to visit if you want to experience Ed's incredible yet mysterious legacy. Moving on to number 7, the Great Sphinx of Giza. Of all the monuments located in Egypt, few are quite as famous as the mysterious Great Sphinx. Depicting a reclining sphinx, which is a mythical creature with the head of a human and the body of a lion, it's absolutely massive. At 73 meters in length, 19 meters in width, and 20 meters high, it was built with limestone blocks and likely constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, a little over 2,500 years ago. However, that's more or less where our understanding of the structure stops. You see, while we know that the Sphinx likely represents Khafre and forms an integral part of his pyramid complex, why it was built in addition to his pyramid is a mystery. One of the leading theories is that it was made as a symbol of the pharaoh's connection to the gods. You see, if you stand at the eastern niche during sunset at the March or September equinoxes, you can witness a dramatic astronomical event. As you stand there, the sun appears to sink into the shoulder of the Sphinx, and beyond that, into the south side of the pyramid of Khafre on the horizon. At the same moment, the shadow of the Sphinx and the shadow of the pyramid, both symbols of the king, become merged silhouettes. According to Egyptologist Mark Lehner, quote, "The Sphinx itself, it seems, symbolized the pharaoh presenting offerings to the sun god in the court of the temple," end quote. Now, if that wasn't cool enough, Mark Lehner also has observed that during the summer solstice, the sun appears to set midway between the silhouettes of the pyramids of Khafre and Khufu. This in turn suggests that the architects arranged for solar events to link the pyramid, Sphinx, and a nearby temple, collectively turning the complex into what Lehner describes as a cosmic engine intended to harness the power of the sun and other gods to resurrect the soul of the pharaoh. This transformation not only guaranteed eternal life for the dead ruler, but also sustained the universal natural order, including the passing of the seasons and annual flooding of the Nile, plus the daily lives of the people. While all this, of course, can't be proved definitively, if true, it would make the Sphinx even more impressive than it already is, and make this mysterious structure one of the ancient world's best examples of architecture linking the sun to human labor. Number 6. Horyuji. Wood is a material that doesn't tend to stand the test of time. After all, it is susceptible to rot, mold, and moisture, and it's for this reason that most of the oldest buildings still standing are made of stone. Yet, against all odds, Horyuji seems to be an exception to this rule. That's because while it has had its fair share of repairs, it stood strong for 1,400 years. Considered to be the oldest wooden structure in the world, the Hui Temple is located in Japan's Ikaruga City. Constructed sometime between 550 and 710 AD, its central area consists of a main hall and 5-story pagoda. The pagoda is the oldest structure at the complex, as the wood is reportedly come from a tree cut down in the year 594 AD. This leaves us with one important question. Why has Horyuji remained standing when many other wooden structures have fallen? The answer seems to lie in both its craftsmanship and the lost, mysterious art of tree reading. On a basic level, the architects involved were smart enough to use the hinoki during the building's construction. It's also known as cypress wood. It's known for its resilience and durability, and some experts even say that Horyuji is as strong today as it was when it was first built. It was also cut in a practically perfect way, despite the fact that craftsmen only had crude tools at their disposal. Yet the expertise at play here goes beyond just picking the right wood and hand-cutting it to perfection. Rather, the trees chosen were very specific. You see, as an organic material, wood is both uneven and unpredictable. This goes beyond just lengths, diameter, and age. Wood expands or shrinks depending on the moisture content. It also bends towards a certain direction depending on the angle at which the tree grew relative to the sun. Furthermore, some trees grow faster and some grow more slowly, affecting their sturdiness. Thus, the location of the tree and how it looked was pivotal to its suitability for the structure, and specialist carpenters known as miyadaikus held the knowledge necessary to select the correct trees. Unfortunately, this is an art that's been lost with time. It's also worth noting that Horyuji continues to hold religious importance. It's still the spiritual headquarters of the Shotoku sect of Buddhism and contains about 2,300 pieces of very early Buddhist sculptures, relics, and art alongside an active monastery. Thus, it should come as little surprise that the Horyuji is one of Japan's most important UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Number 5. The Nonmodal Ruins. When you think of a city made of islands, the canals of Venice or even now the reduced waterways of Mexico City may come to mind. However, one of the most overlooked canal cities is actually located all the way over in Oceania. Considered to be the oldest remaining buildings on the continent, these ruins date back to sometime around 700 AD and are the fascinating remains of a residential complex. Located in Micronesia, the complex consists of a series of artificial islets and buildings in the shallow water next to the eastern shore of Pohnpei Island. The site encloses an area that's approximately 1.5 kilometers long by about a half kilometer wide, and in total it contains nearly 100 artificial stone and coral islets. These islets, it seems, were used as homes for the ruling elite of the island's Sotaler dynasty. You see, the Sotaler dynasty had succeeded in uniting the clans of the island of Pohnpei. However, their very hold was dependent on the continued loyalty of the conquered chieftains. So in order to keep everyone in check, these chieftains were ordered to leave their home villages and move to the city proper, where their activities could be closely monitored. In total, it's believed that about 1,000 people lived there. However, due to the area's complete lack of fresh water and extremely limited arable land, Nonmodal had to be fully supplied with materials from other areas. Yet the big mystery of Nonmodal are its origins. While local legends suggest that the stones were flown to the location of Nonmodal by means of black magic, Archaeologists instead believe that the rocks came from possible quarry sites on the island. However, these rocks are so heavy that no one is exactly sure how they were transported to their present location. To make things even more confusing, there are no carvings on the rocks or artwork to help tell Nonmodal's story, forcing historians to use very scant historic records to fill the gaps. In any case, while Nonmodal is impressive and reportedly stood for about 1,000 years, by around 1450, the Sotolur dynasty fell. By the time the Europeans showed up in the 1800s, Nonmodal had already been abandoned. However, its status as the only ancient city to ever be built on a coral reef makes it a very special, very unique, and in many ways very mysterious place. Number 4. Gocek Tepe. While it might not look like much, Gocek Tepe is a massively important building. That's because it's widely considered to be the oldest human-built structure still around. It's located in southeastern Turkey. It came into being at the tail end of the Stone Age, and it's believed to be about 11,500 years old. It's absolutely massive in terms of size and scope, and consists of large T-shaped pillars that climb down a mountain face. While not intact today, they were installed into and supported by some combination of walls, pedestals, and a roof, and on each pillar there was a monolith. These monoliths had a variety of subjects, including early depictions of humans, dangerous animals such as vultures and jaguars, and sacred symbols. In total, there are hundreds of these monoliths, although only 5% of the site has been excavated, and a lot of work still has to be done. In any case, despite what would have been then to be considered an architectural marvel, we're not exactly sure what Gocek Tepe was used for. However, a few theories abound. Broadly speaking, many believe that it had some sort of religious significance. In all likelihood, the rooms of the complex were used for rituals and sacrifices, and by extension, this would make Gocek Tepe the oldest religious complex known to man. In other words, the potential origin of religion. However, its significance stretches far beyond its religious importance. You see, until the site's discovery in 1994, it was more or less assumed that humans during this time period lived in hunter-gatherer societies. Furthermore, there's no real evidence that hunter-gatherers built massive monuments, as their nomadic lifestyle made it an unreasonable endeavor. However, the size and scale of Gocek Tepe suggest that those who built it were either not hunter-gatherers, or if they were, far more advanced than historians are giving them credit for. This in turn suggests that humans at this time had an advanced system of social cohesion. If this is the case, there's a potentially third alternative, that Gocek Tepe is a relic of a society that was in transition, not fully nomadic but not fully agricultural. This would make the site a truly fascinating study in the shift from one dynamic of life to another. To add further mystery to this site, it seems to have been filled with soil and abandoned in around 8000 BC, a full 3,500 years after its founding. This only further muddies the water on exactly how and what the site was used for, and for the time being, the details behind its true purpose are still a mystery. Number 3. Husa Castle. So of all the castles to dot the European continent, Husa Castle may just be the most mysterious. It's located about 47 kilometers north of Prague. King Ottokar II of Bohemia had the Gothic structure built sometime between the years 1253 and 1278. However, unlike most castles, which were made as military forts or royal residences, Husa Castle was made to house demons. While this may sound ridiculous, the evidence in favor of this conclusion can't be ignored. You see, unlike most castles, Husa Castle was built in a remote area filled with forests, swamps, and mountains. This placement was also far from all known trade routes, making its location seemingly pointless. Now, if that wasn't weird enough, it almost has no external fortifications, no source of water except for a small cistern to collect rainwater, no kitchen, and at the time of completion, no occupants. In fact, the original construction was so odd that it omitted stairs from the courtyard to the upper floors and had most of the structure's defenses built facing inwards. Looked at objectively, it was almost as if the purpose of the castle wasn't to keep invaders out, but rather to keep something trapped within. And trap it did. Home to a supposedly bottomless pit known as the Gateway to Hell, the castle may have been made to keep this hole in check. According to the historic reports, beasts used to emerge from hiding in the hole and terrify local villagers. In response, the king sealed off the hole with stone plates and built a chapel dedicated to the Archangel Michael on top of it. This dedication is quite significant. After all, it was Michael who, according to the Bible, led God's armies against Lucifer's fallen angels. The implication here is that the chapel would have kept the demons from emerging. In any case, despite its supposedly demonic duties, the castle has had a few occupants. For example, in 1639, it was reportedly occupied by a Swedish mercenary named Oronto, who allegedly worked with black magic in an attempt to create an elixir for eternal life. After falling into a degree of disrepair, the structure was fully restored in 1828, and in the 1870s purchased by Josef Simonek, who was the president of the famous auto company Skoda. In the 1940s, things took an unexpected turn for the worse when the Nazis occupied it, and allegedly they used the place for occult experiments. Today, the castle's open to the public, and many parts of it can be visited on tours. Now, it also should be noted before we end this one that some of the history surrounding the castle is a bit sketchy. After all, scholars have since discovered cracks in its histories, and the evidence of the Swedish mercenaries Oronto's existence is rather dubious. Yet there are some who allege that the whole is simply a cash grab, and that in reality it's just a normal pit. Yet despite there being some inconsistencies, what is clear is that Husa Castle is a pretty spooky place. Number 2. The Great Wall of China. Of all the structures that dot the planet, few are quite as well known as the Great Wall of China. It's made up of a grand total of at least 16 separate walls. It stretches for nearly 22,000 kilometers. It's at an average height of 7.8 meters, and it's got a width of about 4.5 meters. It was this wall that helped defend first against the Xiongnu dynasty, and later the Mongols, as it effectively stopped riding horsemen and gave Chinese soldiers the cover necessary to launch attacks. It also allowed Chinese soldiers to more easily organize offensive actions. After all, the historical record seems to indicate that at least during the Xiongnu period, the Chinese were the aggressors far more often than the Xiongnu. Yet despite being such an important and well-known structure, for years one of the most basic facts about the wall was a complete mystery. That's because it wasn't until very recently that we learned how the Great Wall of China was made. You see, it turns out that in order to make the millions of bricks that line the most iconic and well-fortified part of the wall, the Chinese government had to rely on laborers from down south. Often pressured to migrate north, work was grueling, yet incredibly they managed to make the wall quickly and effectively. The secret to the strength and effectiveness of the wall seems to be found in the mortar. You see, if you visit the Great Wall, one of the first things you'll notice is that, unlike Western buildings, the mortar is white. When the Westerners first visited, they asked about this, and in response they were told the popular legend that it was made using the crushed bones of the laborers who died during the construction. Well, the West had to make do with this silly story for years, and for quite a while it seemed that the mortar creation process remained a mystery, forgotten even by the Chinese. Yet, after chemically examining this mortar, Chinese researchers were able to determine that instead of concrete, Chinese laborers used a mix of limestone and, of all things, sticky rice. Well, while this may sound a bit weird, the reality is that mortar with a composition of about 3% sticky rice is highly shake-resistant and stronger than modern mortar, making it an incredibly durable material. However, despite the wall's strength, it didn't last forever. By the mid-1600s, the combined threat of the Mongols and Manchus became too much for the Chinese Ming dynasty to withstand. This came to a head when, in 1644, the commander of a section of the wall surrendered, opening the gates to allow the Manchus to stream into China. The end result was the replacement of the Ming and the establishment of the Qing dynasty, and from that point forward, the Great Wall was no longer used for border defense. From then on, it fell into disarray, and while it was manned for ceremonial purposes during World War II, it was only around the mid-1950s that reconstruction efforts began in earnest. Number 1. The Winchester Mystery House. Now, generally speaking, most modern buildings have a purpose. That is to say, they were built in order to serve one function or another. However, if you travel to San Jose, California, you can visit a mansion that seems to have been built for no real reason at all. It's known as the Winchester Mystery House. This property had relatively humble origins. Back in the mid-1800s, it was a modest 8-room farmhouse in California's Santa Clara Valley. However, after a certain Sarah Winchester inherited the Winchester rifle family fortune from her father-in-law and husband after their passing, she decided she wanted a change of scenery. Based upon both fond memories from her past and the recommendation of a doctor, she decided to move from New Haven, Connecticut to California to take advantage of the warm weather. With little to do and a large fortune, Sarah got to work on what became a lifelong renovation effort. Within just a few months, she's already added more than a dozen rooms, and upon her death in September of 1922, the work still wasn't finished. Despite being incomplete, the end result was pretty impressive. Thanks to Sarah's efforts, what stands today is a 4-story, 160-room and 24,000 square foot mansion. In fact, the home has 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 47 fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 40 stairways, 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms, 13 bathrooms, 6 kitchens, 3 elevators, 2 basements, and a wood-paneled Venetian-inspired dining room. This makes it one of the largest and most luxurious homes in the city of San Jose. However, the reason why it earned a top spot on this list is thanks to the fact that many of the rooms are hard to explain. After all, the home features doors into blank walls, interior windows, and stairs leading up to the ceiling. This seemingly wasn't the work of a sane person, yet the story goes that Sarah Winchester wasn't crazy, but desperate. Before moving to California, a medium allegedly told Sarah that the ghosts of those killed by the Winchester rifle would haunt her until the day she died, unless she went out west to build a house with room for all of them. However, even when she was in her California home, the ghosts continued to bother her, so it's been said that she made all these strange rooms in a bid to confuse and outsmart them. If that wasn't mysterious enough, it's even been said that certain ghosts continue to haunt the outside to this very day. For example, there's apparently a ghost known as Clyde, who's a popular resident at the Winchester estate. Clyde is a man with a mustache, and it's usually seen either pushing a wheelbarrow in the basement or trying to repair the fireplace in the ballroom. In addition to Clyde, there's also unnamed spirits who have done things such as gently tug on shirts or skirts during tours and make loud, unexplainable footsteps. Now, it's worth noting that not everyone buys these stories. After all, many of Sarah's longtime employees and friends denied the story about the medium both during and after her lifetime, and there are some who believe that the whole paranormal bit promoted by the Winchester Mystery House is just a marketing gimmick. However, if it is all a sham, then it would simply make the decision to build so many strange rooms and features in the home all the more mysterious. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.